From Seattle to Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., the prettiest cities in America suddenly look disgusting. Why? The homelessness crisis. In an interview with the president, he said he plans to take action about homelessness. But is it an issue the president can fix or anyone can fix? Do we even understand what's causing it? Jason Rantz is a radio host who's looked deeply into this question. He joins us tonight. Jason, thanks very much for coming on. So you're from a city and a part of the world that's really been transformed by the emergence of these homeless tent cities and these vagrants everywhere. What's driving this, would you say?
So there's a number of things driving it. I think part of it has to do with the opioid epidemic. And what we learned this week on Tuesday was also now a meth epidemic. We've got a lot of people who are dealing with drug issues, and it's not actually being treated. At the same time, we have a lot of people who are dealing with mental illness that is in desperate need of attention. And yes, there is a part of the population that simply can't afford to live here. I think it's a little bit more complex than that. But we know a lot of the driving issues behind this, and yet we're kind of not doing anything because we're stuck in this ideological perspective where it sometimes feels like we've got solutions, but either the Seattle City Council or the mayor's office, and these are problems in LA and San Francisco as well, they don't really want to pursue some rather simple, yes, expensive solutions.
What I'm confused by is if drugs are not the only factor here, as you pointed out, but they're clearly a driving factor in this. A huge percentage of the homeless have drug addiction problems. Why are our leaders pushing a more lenient drug policy? You don't see this garbage in Asia where, you know, marijuana possession can lead to long prison terms. They don't have these problems. Why are our leaders responding in exactly the opposite way?
So I think there's probably two reasons. Number one, I think there is a little bit of a coddling behavior because they don't want to stigmatize, in their view, drug users. And they, I think, believe stigmatizing means calling them drug addicts. And I personally don't think that that's stigmatizing them. I think we should actually be helping them. Number two, I think part of the issue is they'd like to see
let me just stop and say, as a sober person, I never say this, but I just can't control myself. As a sober person, there's nothing wrong with stigmatizing addiction. Addiction is a tragedy. It's horrifying, and everyone should know that. We should stigmatize it because it's awful, I can say.
Yes. I suppose what I would take the position of not wanting to tell them that they're bad people because they're living with an addiction to the point where they don't want to get help. I think that's the only thing. Now, they seem to think, these activists, they believe that simply saying you have an addiction is somehow calling them out as bad people. And I don't believe that. I think they're people under the spell of a deadly disease that is ultimately going to take their life until we intervene. At the same time, we see a clear position, at least in Seattle, and again in some other cities across the country, wanting to go more lenient on some of these drug laws. They believe that it's a social justice cause because it's led to a lot of communities of color being disproportionately impacted. And so they come out there and they say, hey, I'm that white knight, literally in some cases, who are going to help some people. And at the same time, you're not helping anyone. You're actually hurting them even more by not giving them the treatment.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't think there's anything that's hurt this country more than guilty white liberals, obviously. Jason, great to see you. Thank you for that.
Thanks for having me.